the one and only Scott Ritter. Scott, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. It's difficult to know even where to start, but let's start with Prigozhin, with Wagner. He's dead, isn't he? It's not some kind of ruse. Who killed him?
Well, first of all, the Russian government has investigated the remains that have been recovered at the crash site of the business jet that went down near the western Russian city of Tver, and they've confirmed that Prigozhin was on that airplane and he is dead. The list of people who would like to see Prigozhin dead is long. And the one man that could guarantee his protection of Vladimir Putin, for a number of reasons, wasn't going to guarantee his protection anymore. I mean, we need to remember that Prigozhin launched an armed insurrection against Vladimir Putin, his Minister of Defense, his Chief of the General Staff, on June 23, 24. This wasn't a game. 8,000 heavily armed men charged up the M4 highway, seizing control of two Russian cities before being halted outside of Moscow by thousands of Russian troops who were prepared to kill them. Prigozhin himself was put under risk by thousands of Chechen special forces that had surrounded him in Rostov-on-Don. If Prigozhin hadn't backed down and withdrawn, he and thousands of Wagner fighters would be dead today. But Russia would also have had the ignominy of going through a civil war, which is why Vladimir Putin cut the deal he did to prevent a civil war from breaking out on Russian soil. But he rightly called what Prigozhin did treason and labeled Prigozhin a traitor. And then Prigozhin, who was given an opportunity to be exiled in Belarus, continued to violate the terms of his parole. Putin had a meeting with Prigozhin and 35 of the top Wagner leaders on June 29th, at which time he recommended to Wagner that they terminate Prigozhin as their chief. Putin named somebody that he felt would be a more appropriate chief because Wagner, doing the business that it was doing, especially in Africa, could not be led by Prigozhin, a traitor to the Russian people. Prigozhin vetoed this. Dmitry Utkin, the senior military commander of Wagner, also vetoed it. And the Wagner commanders, many of whom wanted to go along with Putin, they're loyal to the brand, and they did this. Then Prigozhin turned around and continued to violate his parole, seeking ties with Africa even after the Russian government had said they're taking over the Africa operations of Wagner. So in theory, the finger points straight at Putin. But to accept that, you have to accept that Putin is a thug, that Putin is a godfather, that Putin lords over a mafia organization, and forget that he is the democratically elected chief executive of a modern nation state founded on the principle of the rule of law. Vladimir Putin did not order Prigozhin killed. We don't even know if anybody actually assassinated him. 4 of the Wagner members on the aircraft were a personal protection detail who loaded arms, ammunition, and pyrotechnics onto that airplane. There could have been an accident. We simply don't know. But what I can say with virtual absolute certainty is that Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, had nothing to do with this.
He fell from the tallest window, it would appear. And people do in Russia, like they do in the United States and Britain. Inconvenient enemies of the state meet unfortunate ends in many countries, including yours, including mine. It would not surprise me if Putin had him killed for all the reasons you adumbrated. But there are many foreign interests who would have an interest in killing Prigozhin also, starting with the French, over Niger and many other things. What do you think of the possibility? It's scarcely, by the way, flattering to Russia if a foreign state were able to blow up an aircraft that took off from Moscow bound for St. Petersburg. That would be a whole different set of embarrassment. But there is the possibility a foreign intelligence service was able to reach Prigozhin, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like I said, the only thing I'm discounting is that Vladimir Putin ordered this hit. I'll just, before I get to the foreign intelligence, I'll make one more thing. People forget that at the time Prigozhin's plane came down, Russia was celebrating one of the great diplomatic victories of all time. And that is, of course, what was taking place at the BRICS summit in South Africa, the enlargement of BRICS by 6 nations, the bringing together of a economic organization that could challenge the G7, challenge the singularity of American hegemony in the world, the beginning of what they would hope to be a multipolar, era of cooperation. Russia is going to take over BRICS in January of 2024 and will be the head of BRICS when this expansion takes place. This is what Putin wanted people to be talking about. So it just seems absurd that he would suck the air out of the story by timing the death of somebody he could kill at any time he wanted. Why do it over to there? Why do it at this time? Why do it in a way that the whole world's going to be pointing the finger at him? So that's why. Now, here's the only thing I have against foreign intelligence services doing it in the manner that Prigozhin came down. That is literally an act of war. I mean, if you want to commit nuclear suicide, if France really wants to do that, then assassinate somebody of the profile of Prigozhin in Russia. It's an act of war. The French intelligence, as they've shown in many of their previous past escapades, the murder of Greenpeace activists off the coast of New Zealand, aren't that good. People find out who did it, how they did it, what they did it, etc. I just don't see Macron being suicidal, just like I don't see the CIA being suicidal or MI6 being suicidal. It is an act of war against the nuclear-armed nation that already has high level of tensions against the 3. If France wanted Prigozhin dead, they could have killed him in Africa. That's where Prigozhin was most vulnerable. That's where an event like this should have taken place. The fact that it was done in Russia means that if Prigozhin was taken out by non-natural occurrences, an accident or something of that nature, I think the finger more likely goes to Russian oligarchs, Russian businessmen of a shadowy character. Prigozhin was a billionaire who ran a multi-billion-dollar company that was unraveling as he spoke. The Russians had taken over his front companies, his shadow companies. They had taken over the business of Wagner. Prigozhin owed billions of dollars. People lost billions of dollars. And when you're dealing with that kind of money, the revenge factor becomes quite hard and high. And as you said, people tend to fall out of buildings in Russia. And they aren't always pushed out by government hands. Many times they die from non-government hands because of the retained corruption that still exists in Russia today from the era of the oligarchs.